Once again, this episode is being brought to you by dieselfuelprints.com. Diesel Fuel Prints has been in the sticker business since 1991, and they've been printing all of my stickers since the early 2000s. Dieselfuelprints.com has easy online ordering and quotes for stickers of any size and shape. Full color printing on the highest quality weatherproof material, and 125 black and white stickers starts at $25. Shipping's always free, and listeners of this show can get 10% off when they use the promo code AWP 2021. So go check out Diesel Fuel Prints for your sticker needs. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is artist and illustrator Dusty Peterson. Dusty is, he does a lot of work for extreme metal bands, album covers, t-shirts, stuff like that. So, you know, we kind of are in the same little area of the art world. And then I found out while talking to him that he is also a video game artist. And if you listen to the show, you know that I was an artist in the game industry for like 15 years. So it was cool to sit and talk a little bit about what life is like for guys like us who spread it across multiple, streams of income to do what it is we do for the love of it and, to make a living as an artist, which isn't always easy. So there's a lot of stuff in here about what it takes to, keep going as a full-time artist, especially when you do kind of extreme art. So really cool and informational episode. You can find links to all of Dusty's work down below. He's an incredible painter. And, you can also find all of the Anyway Whatever podcast links below to the Patreon and the merch. And I appreciate all the support I get from both of those places. And yeah, the great episode. Dusty's a super nice guy, and he's really, really interesting to listen to him talk about how he gets by doing what he does. So yeah, we're going to get to the episode on the other side of that. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike Fisher, and today's guest is artist Dusty Peterson. What's up, dude? How are you?
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Of course, man, of course. Anybody who listens to this show knows that, I always spend 15 to 30 minutes just chatting with my guests before we actually start recording. So there's always this we got to stop and then do the little fake get started at thing.
Well, it's good because I actually haven't talked to you before. So I want to get to know you a little bit more, before we, record. So
yeah, it actually works out because we have so much in common with our careers that I didn't know you were in video games, and that I knew that you did some work in games. I didn't know that was your full day gig.
Yeah, I wish I could do the album cover or just illustration in general, full time. I guess I haven't met, how they would say, it's who you know. I guess I haven't met those people yet to wiggle me into those arenas yet. But the video games have been doing me pretty well for quite a while. So
yeah, they I mean, I was in for 15 years, and it enabled me to, provide a really nice living for my family when my kids were growing up.
Yeah.
And then the minute I could get out, I got out of it. But still tons of friends in that industry in all different aspects. And, one of the things that, this has kind of been brought up a little bit, and it touches on what you were just saying about, the right person to be able to do it, a full-time freelance. I found that I had to do 50 different types of art business to be able to stay out of having to do. It's like I have to be I'm a graphic designer. I'm an illustrator. I do custom paint work. I do, I do everything in order to be able to, I work on TV commercials, doing mocking up shots, with the desk goes there and the painting on the wall there. I do a lot of Photoshop work and that kind of stuff for that. And, props, and I'm, like I'm working on posters and t-shirt designs, and I work for like 5
Yeah.
different merchandise companies and 3 different record you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, you are hustling. You are seriously lining up the work. That's awesome, dude.
I have to have like 5 or 10 things going
Yeah.
at some level of happening in order for me to not be freaking out about being able to pay my bills. You know what I mean?
I know. Yeah. Well, that's always been the thing I've heard too. Is that you have to be really good at either planning, lining up work, or saving, because it's you never know if someone's like done with you, or maybe this client doesn't pay or whatever the last amount they owe you or whatever. And I guess I've been a little chicken shit to ever take that dive into that when I know that I can get paid once every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I definitely do miss that to a certain extent. But my wife she does really well, and I couldn't keep doing what I do without her doing as well as she does. And so, it's like, I was talking to Laura Dan, the painter Laura Dan, and, and she was like, yeah, like a lot of us. She's like, a lot of us have a partner who's supportive of what we do, and it's like, well,
that's cool though. That's seriously awesome.
It works out, it's like, it works out. Like she's the type of person who's not super interested in like housework stuff. Like she's like, so I do all the laundry, I do all the dishes, I do all the cooking. I'm like total house husband. And she's like, that's awesome. I don't want to do any of that shit. So it's like a good symbiotic relationship.
No, that works out great.
Yeah, totally. So to let people know who it is and what you do, your name is Jesse Peterson, as I mentioned, and you do a lot of, outside of video games, which we covered. You do a lot of me and you, our businesses cross a little bit, where we do a lot of album cover and merch design for like metal bands and stuff. Although you've definitely done better than I ever could have dreamed in like metal album covers. End up doing a lot more punk rock than metal, even though metal is what I would like to be able to do. But my stuff's, it's a little too cartoony. It's like, even when I'm trying to be super scary, it just comes off as a little too light. But I do okay sometimes.
Hey, there's a metal band for everyone. There is every genre in the world out there. You know that.
Yeah, it's true.
Find the band that work. That's how I, started doing it. Really, I just started finding bands that I thought would kind of match what I wanted to paint that month. And it, when I was really pushing it in the early days, that were working out really well. I've kind of, ever since having a kid, I kind of relaxed on pushing clients, and trying to drum up work, especially because of the video game thing. That's how I do it. I just find bands that look like, hey, they look like they want a monster on their album cover. I'm right now.
Yeah, for sure. Is all of your stuff digital?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Has it always been that way, or is that?
Well, I've got a traditional background. I draw. I mean, I've been drawing since I was, probably 7 years old, like anybody, right? And I used to want to draw comic books when I was a teenager. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into comic books. My dad drove me out to New Jersey to go to the Joe Kubert school, and I was like, man, this is it. Like, I'm gonna go to this school. I'm gonna be a comic book artist. It's gonna be great. And two things happened simultaneously that kind of put the kibosh on that. I went to a lot of comic conventions when I was growing up, and I remember seeing, for starters, I love going being behind the table too, but I saw a lot of my favorite, what I saw at the time at 15, 16 years old, big stars, right? And I'm like, oh, they're not making any money. They're not making any money. Like, am I going to be able to survive like this? I mean, I would just see them behind the tables, and it's great how I know now that they are just artists. They're my peers. They're people, right? But at 16, you put them on a pedestal, and you think, man, that's it. It's gonna be amazing how all these fans, everyone's gonna like line up for my table, and then you go up to the people and they don't have a line, and they're I mean, there's something to do. Obviously, there's a ton, but you realize, hey, well, maybe this isn't so glorious and the grass is always greener kind of scenario as a kid. And then also I hated New Jersey. I really loathed that trip to New Jersey. I was just like, I can't go to school here. And so that kind of like, it wasn't that I stopped drawing then. It was just that there was a few things that happened. I wanted to get into, I said, well, I want to do comic books anymore. So what am I going to do with my life? I was like, well, I want to do movie special effects. I want to do like practical, like sculpting and molding and all this cool stuff. So I went to school for that, which was such an ass backwards way of doing it. Let me tell you. I didn't know there was no Tom Savini school for makeup effects back then. There was no Face Off, the TV show on Sci-Fi where they were like kind of get inside.
I love that show.
Me too. But there was none of that shit. And so I didn't know what I was doing. All I did was I called the Art Institute of Seattle, which first of all, you've probably read enough about the Art Institutes online, being a for-profit art school that what is there to say? They're not even in school anymore. But anyway, I still I went to the school and I was like, well, this is what I want to do. You want to be an industrial designer then? I'm 16, 17, 8, probably 17 years old. I don't know what an industrial designer is. I find myself going to school and I'm getting a really good, I feel at the time, a pretty good education. But like, where's all the like monster effects, man? I'm designing screwdrivers and shit over here. Like that's what industrial design is: designing chairs and cars and tools and shit. And I'm just like, what the hell am I doing with my freaking life? Anyway, I graduated. It was great, but then I had to start making money. I had to pay off that loan, right? And I just got so lucky, man, that my mom's husband, not my dad, my mom's husband.
Oh shit! Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Something happened. Hold on. Oh,
you're back.
I'm back.
You're back.
Oh, I don't know what that was.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Anyway.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and so my mom's husband was a programmer at Treyarch. So that was basically my first in, and it was at that point that I really kind of discovered digital art in general because I was a texture artist. I didn't know how to model yet, but I knew how to do enough drawing. I got hired because this is 2000. I got hired on a traditional portfolio, which is ridiculous. You ask any kid now trying to get into the game industry, they're going to need to know this 3D package, ZBrush, Substance Designer, all these different packages to make AAA games. I got in on Scribbles.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. Same here. So, I got in even more ridiculously. I got in like I was saying before, like I went to school for like a year and then I started having kids and I was done with, and I went into the family business. But I had traditional animation skills, but who I got hired by for my first job was a guy that I knew from the punk rock scene when I was a teenager who had gone on to do computer stuff, and he was running a game studio down here. And he's like, dude, I need someone who can draw stuff like you draw on paper. And I was like, okay, cool. And then when I was down there, he's like, learn how to use all the software and we'll work you into it. And then I just kind of parlayed that. But one of the big things and it goes to directly what you're saying right there is that by the time I was out at the end of my game career, I was the boss. And so I was hiring and team managing, and, I was like was the lead artist on stuff. And when we started in the game industry, you got in because you had some kind of skill and you knew somebody, whatever. Yeah. Like I was hiring kids who had degrees in game art. And I was like, that wasn't even there. Nobody had even considered that as a thing 15 years ago. Like there was no school to learn how to make video games. Yeah, it was like crazy. Yeah, I hired a few DigiPen people. I hired a kid who went to Arizona State University and got a game art degree from ASU. Yeah. I was like, what the hell?
I know. On one hand, it's like when I got in, I kind of feel like it was the best time to get in because there wasn't that insane competition. They were hiring you in traditional skills because there was no one there to do the art. Like they needed the people. Now it's so choked with just so many young and fresh kids just coming right out with I mean, they certainly don't have the experience that I have, but they definitely have way more in the way of like program knowledge of
Dude, the
software than I
digital
do.
skills of some of these young guys that I like watch on YouTube, like it's insane. Like the amount I've been using Photoshop every single day for over
Yeah.
25 years. Almost every penny I've made as an adult can somehow be Photoshop was involved at some level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
I watch these kids and I'm like, I can't make Photoshop do 10% of the shit that they do.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's insane
I
to
feel
me.
you. Well, this has been my. I could be totally way off base. This could be totally just idiotic, but like I always figured that it had something to do with the access that kids have now to things like tutorials, time lapses,
Oh, yeah.
Patreons with basically instruction on how to do things. What did I do when I was 17? I bought H.R. Giger art books. I bought Dragon magazine. I bought
totally.
like comic books, like the things that I saw other people doing art in, and going, oh, that's fucking cool. I want to do that kind of shit.
Yeah,
So,
going back a little bit to the Kubert School. I have worked in the game industry. I worked with a ton of people who went through the Kubert School.
oh yeah,
And it's like when I was 17 and I was trying to figure out what I was doing, what I was going to do with my art, because that was the whole plan. I didn't know that there was a place like the Kubert School. I didn't know there was a place like Cal Arts in
Yeah.
LA where you could go to an animation specific school or an
Yeah.
illustration specific school. And if I'd have known about Kubert School, I would have 100%. I would have gone to the Kubert Animation School. There's no absolute, because it was I got accepted to the Academy of Art in San Francisco, and I didn't end up going because I looked, and it kind of had a similar epiphany that you did with the trade show. I was like, I don't know how I'll ever pay this off as an artist. Like, because I was like, my goal was either animation or like fine arts, like,
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm like, what if my paintings aren't something people want to buy? I remember at the time it was like $36,000 or something. I was like, I'll never ever have $36,000.
Yeah.
And
I
so
still
like,
kind of feel like that sometimes.
I know, right? If I'd have known about the Kubert School, I would have went 100, either that, or if I'd have known about like Cal Arts down here, like, and their animation school, it would, you couldn't have stopped me from going. And it was like, I just didn't know that those places existed. Like, I was like, oh, you go to art school, you go to San Francisco Academy of Art or whatever, cause I was from the Bay Area, and it was like, I just didn't even know. Like, and it's a bummer because you would you would hope that these schools would be like, hey, hello.
No, dude, dude. Look at like your high school experience is probably very similar to mine. Everything happening at that high school level is to usher you into a university or a community college or whatever the just traditional
the workforce
the workforce path is. And so, I mean, so much goes into that. And as I mean, you can't expect your parents to do all this research for you. And I certainly thought I was researching. At 17-year-old, actually, I mean, I'm reading a magazine here about, oh, look, there's concept art in here. That's me researching. I don't know anything. And I mean, basically, it's pure luck that I'm even where I'm at, to be honest, because I have no idea how. I guess just because the only thing I know how to do is make art. That's all I know how to do is draw and paint and sculpt and all these things. There's lots of different art to do, and so I just kind of kept pushing forward. And
well, I mean, that's
got lucky,
like that's like I talked to a lot of artists on this podcast, and that's like the common theme. Like this, there's no other option really. Like we all do what we do because there's nothing else we could be doing. Like I know from my dad was like a really, really killer illustrator. And
cool.
When he was like in his teen years, he was like he was like in the like 50s, 60s hot rod scene in Seattle. My parents are both from Seattle. And my dad's from White Center and my mom's from West Seattle. And you know, my dad was like a little low level hoodlum hot rod guy, and he was a pinstriper, and he was an amazing pinstriper. And like I remember growing up, and I'd like, you know, I'd find stuff, you know, in like, you know, in his closet or whatever, like a sketchbook, and it was like all these like pinstripe patterns that he'd done. And and I found his pinstripe brushes, which I actually still have. And then like every now and then he, you know, I'd be drawing and he'd sit down and draw, and he was like, he's so good at it. And it was always like, well, why didn't you do that? You know? And he was like, I just didn't ever think it was, you could raise a family as an artist.
Yeah.
And my wife's father is the same way. He's an oil painter. He's an amazing oil painter. But, you know, he's like, well, you know, that's not in the 1950s and 60s. That wasn't a thing that you would invest your life in doing. So like, you know, went even and became an engineer, and, you know, he designed the circuit boards for fucking computer keyboards.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
It's like, he's an amazing painter and illustrator. And like both my dad and my father-in-law are like, there was just like, nope. and so they both see me doing my thing, and they're both like, they're probably overly impressed with my art career, because it was the thing that they never had the, I don't want to say they didn't have the guts to do it, but it just didn't seem practical for them to do in their time.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of artists back then, you know, are like, I don't think, you know, a lot of the, you know, old fantasy paintings that, you know, you jump to your mind or whatever. Those people they didn't seek out to, I want to be a fantasy painter someday. You know, they worked for some firm.
Yeah. That painted advertisements for Marlboro and
paint some sci-fi thing, you know, like, paint some aliens in the corner there. Okay. And they were already really good painters, and, you know, they just made up stuff. And then of course now there are our heroes, you know, that we're working on, you know, 70s, you know, fantasy paintings or sci-fi paintings or whatever. So.
You know,
horror.
It wouldn't be an episode of my show with another artist if Frank Frazetta's name didn't get dropped. You know what I mean? It's
I mean, he's kind of everyone's inspiration in some way. Yeah,
I mean, I think he's probably the greatest American painter. For my money, he's the greatest American painter ever. Him and Norman Rockwell have got to be the two guys for me. You know?
I agree with that. Yeah,
and Robert Williams, and I put Robert Williams in the same in the same boat with those dudes.
Yeah. I was never directly like super into Frazetta when I was like a teenager. I found out more him in my 20s. Mm-hmm. But once I finally connected the dots, seeing what he did and where he went and all the things that he, you know, it's like when I first discovered like really what Jack Kirby did, you know, it's just like, oh my God, this guy touched so many things either directly or inspired the next in line person that I love, you know?
Yeah. And so, I was never a comic book person. I was never really a comic book guy. There were always books that I liked, and I had friends, cause you know, I obviously, you know, when you're a teenager, you kind of try to find other like-minded people as much as you can. So like, you know, I'd find other kids that, you know, I went to school with who could draw or whatever. And so I had friends who were into comics and who collected comics. And so I was in comic book stores all the time, but I just never got bit by the bug to collect them myself for whatever reason. And I never was interested in being a comic book artist per se. I'm always was much more interested in like single piece art, like skateboard graphics or album covers or something where I was never good at recreating the same character multiple times.
Oh yeah, me either.
And like I never could really do that. Dude. And I think I struggled with it to the point where I was like, this isn't for me. And so but I spent a lot of
fucking hard, dude.
Yeah. But I definitely, there were, you know, if you have any even passing interest in being an illustrator, and you have to know who Jack Kirby is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Pretty much.
So even I knew who Kirby was. And even though I'm not super, I probably don't know the name of more than 5 comic book artists ever. I definitely know who Jack Kirby is.
Yeah.
Even now, like his work, like I will look at Kirby stuff for for inspiration or to get ideas all the time.
Yeah.
As a person
Oh, no,
who's
it's
not
crazy.
a comic book guy. And the other one that I go to a lot is McFarlane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like McFarlane, like I think he changed comic book art towards I've mentioned this before on the show. One of the reasons why I struggled with getting into comic books when I was a kid was that the art inside was so much more simple than the cover. I felt like I was getting gypped a little bit.
Yeah, I can feel that. Yeah.
And then when McFarlane started doing his thing with Image, it was like the inside panels were as good as the cover panels, for the most part. And he had cooler, interesting characters for me it was a lot darker. And so I think if I was ever really into comics, it was definitely like the Spawn stuff and
that was when I got on board, man.
All that kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah.
I every now and then I'll watch like his YouTube thing where he does Wacom drawings, and it's like,
I follow him
fucking
too.
good at it.
Yeah, he's always been super helpful. Some people will like bag on Tom McFarlane sometimes. Oh, he's not that good. It's like, and I mean, of course, everyone can have their opinions about his art,
Sure,
but like I've always appreciated how he always gives back in some way. He's always trying to inspire the younger artist in some way, while not necessarily like children, but like the teenage to 20s artists. He's really out there like, hey, like this is all it takes, man. This is how I'm just drawing stuff right now for you. There you go. In about 10 minutes. See you next time. He's like, yeah, dude. Like that's how it should be.
Yeah. I mean, I'm for the last I don't know, probably 8 or 9 months, I've been working on putting content together for a YouTube art channel.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's been in my brain for a while, but you're way further along than I am.
I mean, I have a bunch of episodes all recorded and stuff. It's
nice.
just one of the things that the video game industry gave me was this insane work ethic and the knowledge that I need to work as far ahead as I can so I'm never caught behind. And so it's like, if I'm going to do like exactly what I did with this podcast, if I'm going to do a YouTube channel, I'm going to have 10 episodes done before I put one up.
That's smart.
So that I'm never, ever behind. And you know what I mean?
No, because that's how you lose. That's how you lose an audience right there is you're posting something, and then you go, oh, 3 months go by and then they're done. So
that was like one of the things that I started doing during the pandemic is I got super addicted to YouTube channels, not necessarily just art channels, but I collect Hot Wheels diecast cars, and so I watch like diecast restorations. I watch diecast racing, and there's this one called 3D Bot Maker, and it's my favorite TV show. Let's put it that way. And it's like,
what does he do on it?
He just does Hot Wheels racing, and it's
that's
like
cool.
He there's like it's shot and commentated like real racing.
Oh, wow.
But it's also very funny. Like he built this like big, huge track that goes down this mountain, and it's got multiple camera angles.
Stuff. Yeah.
And he's doing all this funny, commentating with his sidekick, who is himself. He does both voices, which is even more impressive. And
that's the stuff that I think I'm super impressed with.
So awesome. But the thing that I learned from the last 18 months of watching YouTube shows is consistent. You have to put out an episode. If you don't put out an episode every week, it has to be every 2 weeks. It's like any TV show. Like you need your audience to sit down on this day and watch their show. The show that it's like people are still kind of, even though we can binge everything now and people can watch anything they want when they want, people still like to have that that routine of like. And so the thing about the entire point of my art channel will be to do as many different types of projects as I can, because that's what my life is as an artist.
Yeah.
And to inspire people to not give a shit about whether or not they're good at it or whether or not anybody likes what they do, but to just to make it because it's fun to make. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah, dude.
I don't know.
That is always my advice to people. I
Like,
got artist block. What do I do? Like, dude, draw something fun, man. Like, I need to do more hand studies. Like, no, you don't. Do them next time when you're not in the dumps about it. Like, seriously, like, it's way too many people. They're super bummed out about artist block, or like, everything I do sucks. And so they keep doing things that remind them how much they suck at something. Like, sometimes you got to remind yourself that you're awesome, you know, and
that
it's
art
like,
is fun.
do something fun, man. Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun. It's weird. Like, I never have artist block ever.
I don't either. Never
Like,
once.
I never, ever, ever have it. I have lack of motivation sometimes.
Yes, that comes I have in spades.
It stems from anxiety about being able to pull off the thing that I want to pull off. Like, I can see it in my head, and I know I need to get going on it, but it's like, it's that fucking build up to like getting started sometimes. And then the other one
with you on that, dude.
The other 100%. One that I struggle with is the the midway slump, where you get to a certain part of it and you're like, I don't know where to go next. Like, I know where I need to go next. I don't know how to get there. I don't need to how to get through where I'm at, because either I don't have the skill to get to where I want to take it, and I'm going to have to figure out how to get it done anyway. That's usually what my thing is because I'm like mediocre at like everything, which is kind of a bummer.
That's pretty much the, people call it the time when I think that this looks like shit. This looks awesome. This looks awesome. This is gonna be great. This looks like shit. This looks like shit. This looks like shit. And so how good of an artist you are, I guess, is how good you are at pulling it away from looking like shit to looking cool.
Yeah, and you also have to remind yourself that your opinion of it is the least important opinion.
Yeah.
The rest of the world's opinion is the one that matters. So I've gotten very good at that. And like I was kind of saying, is like, I have to work on so many different types of projects that I can't get sentimental about things, or I'll never fucking finish everything. And I can't afford to not finish anything. So I'm very good at being like,
I need to take your advice.
If the person I'm making this for loves it, whether it's the merch company or the art director at the merch company or skateboard company or what, if they like it, my opinion is of absolutely no consequence. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to make it as good as I can. And I'm almost always happy with everything I do. But I definitely suffer from the thing of, I love it when it's done. And then 3 days later, I'm like, that's fucking trash.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that over, you know?
I've done that a few times before, where I want to kind of George Lucas my own stuff and like go back and kind of give a little polish on there and just no one paid attention to this part anyway. I'm just going to do something different here. I've got a couple pieces like that where
Going back to Frazetta, he was famous for that. Like, going back to paintings like 30 years later and like,
oh wow,
changing shit on it.
I didn't know that.
Like, what the fuck are you doing, dude?
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, he would do that all the fucking time.
I would at least make a nice like print on a canvas and then alter the canvas, or the print. I don't think I could do it.
He's Frank Frazetta, man.
I know, he can do whatever he wants.
One of a fucking kind.
Yeah.
That whole like legend of like, after he had his stroke, he taught himself retaught himself with his left hand.
That's crazy.
Or retaught himself with his right hand, and nobody knew. Like, his work was just as good, and that's insane to me.
That's pretty
There's
awesome.
so many things about Frazetta's career and work that are so impossible to me as an artist. Like, if you're an artist and you're pretty accomplished, like, you can look at how somebody else does something and be amazed in a way that people who don't make art can be amazed. You know what I mean? Like somebody who doesn't make art can look at a Frazetta painting being like, that's really fucking cool. But if you paint and you look at a Frazetta painting, you're going to be like, the fuck did he do that?
I know.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's like, there's so many things about his career and work that for me, that when I look at it, and then it's like, you realize that, like, with a brush and ink, he was also a master inker. And it was like, it was just so, he was so incredibly talented, top to bottom. It wasn't like
Yep.
he was specialized in one thing. He was just. I hold him in the highest regard, like him,
Yeah.
and
Well, yeah, as he should be. Yeah.
for me, Robert Williams is the exact same thing. Like, you look at his paintings and you're like, God damn. And then when you look at his black and white ink illustration work, it's like just as good in a totally different way. And it's like, it doesn't even seem fair.
I swear, man. Like, whenever I switch up mediums like that, like, oh, I mean, I can draw, I can do some inking, I can do some sculpting, I can do lots of things. But I swear, man, like inking is the one where I beat my head against the wall the most on. Where I think something and I put it down, I'm like, this does not look like how I wanted it to. Most of the other things I could pull myself out of the gutters on, but inking, I don't know, man. Like, it's tough. It is way harder than people think it is. Because yeah, especially if you're not down with a lot of the brushes and all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, you're gonna fail.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate. I always say my dad was a pinstriper, so there were pinstriping brushes and stuff all over our house when I was growing up. So he kind of taught me a little bit how to pull lines, and then I inked with technical pens forever, and then like I guess like 20 years or so ago, I was like looking at Jack Kirby stuff, and I was like, I am going to practice inking with a brush, until I feel like I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And I did that. And now like, I got my first like tablet monitor, I guess in like 2016. So it's been like 5 years now. And, I just, as a test, cause I wasn't sure if I totally used to using a regular old school Wacom from the game industry, but I never drew anything with it. Like I would do coloring with it. I would draw on paper, scan it, do all my coloring and stuff with the Wacom. And then at some point I was like, well, I'm not going to invest in a Cintiq if I don't know I like it. So I bought one of those, $300 like Amazon, ones. And I was like,
that's a pretty good price.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I mean, it wasn't great, but it definitely, within like the first probably month, I was like, I don't think I'm going to draw on paper ever again. And I don't think I have drawn on paper again since then.
I've definitely transitioned like that a lot. Like I actually sometimes go through these moments where I'm like, man, I'm just tired of sitting at my computer all the time. I need to reconnect with art, and I'll bust out my sketchbooks and I'll bust out paints and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, all right. And I'm just like, and I fucked it up. And I really wish I had my undo thing, and I really wish I had my history, and I wish I could have layers, so it's, it's definitely, I guess it's my crutch, guilty, but like,
I have my Cintiq. I finally invested in a Cintiq like 2.5 years ago, and I was like, I do, like if somebody like hires me to do an album cover that needs to look like an oil painting, I do it on there. You know what I mean? It's like everything is done on the Cintiq now.
Oh yeah, I'll do that sometimes. Like I did one for Unleash the Archers, and they said they specifically wanted it to be oil paint looking. So I actually did bust out the oils. It of course looked like shit because I'm not an oil painter. I mean, I want to be. I'd love to someday. I'd love to work in oils more. I see plenty of amazing oil paintings, especially on Dark Art Society. People are posting stuff all the time. I'm just like, I want to do that. I'll do it.
Same.
And it sucks. And so I go back to my computer. Well, I pulled them out for that, and I just basically used it like a texture. Like I kind of had my reference on my screen, and I had my painting over here, and I'm kind of just loosely painting to get the strokes, right? And to get that canvas texture. Yeah. And then I just took a picture of it with my phone and brought it into Photoshop, and I just painted digitally on top of that, and then also duped it up on another layer above it so that it would give me that, some overlay or, soft light or something. And it was like, this looks like a freaking oil painting. Yes. And they loved it, dude. They're like, oh my God, did you paint us an actual oil painting? Like, yes. But only about 10% oil painting. You're
going to pay me appropriately.
Oh, they paid fine, but it was a fun time. Yeah. And I haven't done that since. I need to do another one like that because it was kind of a fun. I do that a lot. Like, whatever area I can't meet in a certain medium, I will just do up until I'm good enough right at that ceiling, and then I'll just bring it over in Photoshop. It's like I can't sculpt and ZBrush all that well. That's all right. It can look like shit. Bring that in Photoshop. Do a little bit of watercolor to get some cool like texture and drips and stuff. Bring it in Photoshop.
Well, nowadays there's so many brushes in Photoshop that mimic like watercolor or oil or whatever. Like there's like I have a set that is brushes that are just canvas texture. And it's just like bloop. And then I have another one that's like, it's like the cracks in oil painting, like bloop. It's just like,
it's nice.
It's crazy.
I mean,
I used to feel like it was cheating, and now I totally don't anymore. I'm like, it doesn't matter how the work gets done.
Is versatile. Yeah. And I need versatility. I've got a kid too. I've got a day job. I've got all this stuff. I'm exhausted by the end of my day. I don't have like, and I'm not going to be painting, until 3 a.m. anymore. Like it's not happening. And so I need to make use of the time that I have, make good use of that time. And so digital allows me to do that. It allows me to, just save versions of it. Maybe I'm not confident on something where I'm like, I'm going to try this weird little thing over here. Okay, that didn't work out. Back to where I was. And we're going to try this way now. And I love that, because I don't have to just paint over stuff.
Right, dude. So many versions. There is so many versions on my hard drives of pieces of work where it's like, this is in a really good spot and I'm going to take it to the next level, but I need to be able to go back here if this doesn't pan out. And I'm working on an album cover painting right now. And speaking of Frazetta, they were like, we want it to look like the backgrounds from Fire and Ice. And I was
everybody wants that.
And I was like, okay, yeah, that's like a gouache look. I can totally do that. And like, I'm in a tough spot with it right now where I'm like, it looks pretty good, but at the same time, like I don't know how to get it to the next spot it needs to be. And
you got 80% there. You got to figure out the last 20%.
I think I'm like at 50%.
Okay.
And I wish I was at 80%.
Yeah.
But then you get that's on tomorrow's list of things to do.
Yeah.
Get back on that. Yeah. Like I said, like I keep so many projects going at one time. And then I'll get like, I'll move them all along to the point where it's like I'm within striking distance of finishing. And then I'll just like take one day and be like, okay, I can finish these 2 or 3 things like in like 2 hours each. And it's like, get them done. And then they're out of the way and they go back. I'm moving back and forth. I'm a crazy person with how I work.
I need some of that craziness.
Yeah, well, it's because you have a day job. You don't have a fire in your ass like
no, it's true. I don't. Absolutely not. Yeah, I do lack the motivation sometimes. That's honestly like why I said a couple of years ago, I'm fucking done with the album covers. Like I had a really nasty, really horrible experience a couple of years ago, and I was like, I'm done. And I'm gonna focus on just making my own art. And if someone wants to license it for their album cover, fine. But I'm not doing any more custom art. And then Unleash the Archers came along, and they were just one of the nicest clients I've ever had in my life. And it was just like, okay, I guess occasionally I'll do one. And so, here I am. But I'm still mostly doing stuff for like, past clients. I every time a new band writes me, they probably are like, who the fuck is this guy? Because I'm way, way, way picky right now. Like if someone like writes me, we want all this crazy stuff, I'm like, unless you want like big slimy Cthulhu beast, I'm not really into it. Like, but I was like, sorry, that's what I want to paint right now. I don't really feel like making another ruined city landscape with whatever. There's always some ruined city somewhere,
Totally. Death metal. What would death metal be without a ruined city and a giant monster looming over it?
Yeah, that's great for me though, because I'm not so thrilled on the ruined city, but I am pretty thrilled on the monsters. So.
Yeah,
I love monsters so much.
To talk a little bit about your cover art and the other work that you do in that kind of same vein. There's like a lot of Biskinsky stuff in there, yeah. Like I noticed, like
huge
a lot
fan
of
of
like
his stuff.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who does what we do,
is.
And one of the things that you seem to be able to capture that I don't see other people who work in that influence is that like the sense of scale that he got. Like the sense of scale is like always the most impressive part of his work to me. Is it's just like you're like looking at this skeleton and then there's some small reference that's like, oh my God, that thing's like 1,000 feet tall. You know what I mean? And you're like, holy shit.
Even when he doesn't do that, even when there isn't a scale reference, it still feels huge because he's almost always pulling the camera down to the ground, looking up.
And there's so much atmosphere.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You know, between you and the object, you know, it's like there's a lot of atmosphere between you and the subject, and so it's like looking at a hazy mountain where, you know, it's like you can tell it's in the distance. And man, his work is really amazing. I mean, obviously,
I can't. You know, I can't wrap my head around it. Honestly, sometimes I look at it and go like, you know, because I mean, you know, sometimes you kind of copy some of your favorite artists, just trying to like digest their techniques and stuff.
Sure,
I'm sitting there just like, all right, you know, I mean, it's pretty easy, I think, for a lot of artists to get down with this whole like kind of knuckle thing that he does on everything. I mean, a lot of people do that. They ape that from him a lot. I do. I've done it before, no problem. But man, he does some things sometimes where it's just like, he must. I mean, is this painting just massive? Like I don't know the size of them, to be honest, but they have to be huge because there's so many just nice, wispy, almost hairy like details and texture that I'm just, man, I can't. I don't know, but it is amazing to me.
In terms of that, the first time I ever had my mind literally blown completely out of my skull by seeing the work of one of my favorite artists is I went to a Salvador Dali exhibit. Nice. And his paintings are tiny. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah, they're not big. they're not big.
I don't know how anyone works small.
I know. And it's like, you know. And then you can never look at it the same again because it's like, well, if you were painting it big, it's like, that's one thing. But when you see how small they are and then you realize the amount of detail that is in some parts of his paintings, you're like, get out of here. But one of the things that was neat, it was at the LA Museum of Contemporary Art. And it was like the entire place was just Dali's, like his entire, it was like a retrospective. So they had everything from the lobster telephone, you know, which is like a sculpted object, to like these massive backdrops that he painted for Hollywood productions that were like, you know, like 100 feet wide by like 60 feet tall. And, you know, and then like, you went into he did this animation piece where he like, you know, he did an actual piece of like character animation and they had every single drawn frame on the walls and just to see. And then at the end of the room was the actual finished piece that they showed. Oh, cool. It was insane. That exhibit, it was like, you know, is one of those things where you're like, this is what art should always be. You know what I mean? Like it should always be like this and not like one Dali painting in one gallery with 50 other things. It should, you should be immersed,
the experience
past your eyeballs in this one person's work. And just like seeing some of those pieces and realizing how they weren't super big. And I was like, damn.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. I learned that today. That's awesome. I assume they'd be pretty big.
Educating people out here on the podcast. So you're not really doing too much album cover work at this point.
Well, that's not true. I've been slammed all year. It's just that it's for past clients, ones that I just can't say no to because they're good friends and I've worked with them before and, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, I've done a few things, but I'm also slow as shit. Really, really slow right now. I'm only getting to work a couple hours a night on things. You know, just for whatever reason, motivation or COVID got you down kind of things. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just last year was a struggle for me mentally for sure. And so, you know, I'm this year I was like, okay, obviously this stuff's still going on. It's still affecting people. People still dying from it, all that stuff. But I'm just I'm not going to say no to these past clients. I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to work. I'm going to do some cool stuff. And I can't show it yet, but I've done some of my coolest pieces this year. So,
That's cool. You did
Obviously,
that collar.
like,
You recently posted that collar piece, which was fucking
oh
awesome.
yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, that was actually done last year. That was the only one of, like, I'm trying to think, I may have done another one, but I think that was like the only album cover I did last year.
Wow.
And of course, and it only got just now released because vinyl pressing times are like a year.
I know.
And
that's
so,
a common
yeah.
thing that's talked about on this
Yeah.
show too, is the record pressing turnarounds. It's like ridiculous. It's like, 2 years ago it was 6 months and everybody was like, that's crazy. And now it's like, it's not even funny how long it takes to get a record pressed.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And so yeah, that was a really fun one. That was for Wax Vessel. Wax Vessel does a lot of really, really cool vinyl. I don't even know how they do it. I don't know if they posted any videos showing how they do it, but their records are full of all kinds of like colors, and almost like it's kind of centrifugal force going and making it spatter, whatever that is. A lot of that kind of stuff. They're not just like flat colored records. They're like the record itself is like an art piece, basically. And so when I saw that what he was doing and saw like, all the going back, and he does a lot of reissue type stuff with a new album cover kind of thing. I was like, that sounds kind of fun. It's a little different. I've never interpreted somebody else's art before. There wasn't like a study or something, you know what I mean? Like for an official thing, I've never interpreted somebody else's art before. So that was kind of a fun thing, kind of different.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, you just tackled it completely different than the original artist did.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna. I've got lots of like feelings in general about like, whether sanctioned or not, just copying other artists and plagiarism, and it wouldn't be plagiarism, but I would still feel weird if I was like trying to like match the proportions and the details that they were doing. Like, I did the pose. I basically pose swiped it.
Right.
And
I am the pose swiper of all time. Like, I don't have a foundation at all in anatomy or how to draw shit right, and so I'm like on Google getting stuff from stock photos to like figure out my poses and stuff all the time.
I model it in 3D, dude. Like, I model it in 3D, and I that's how because I don't know, my eye and my brain can sculpt anatomy a lot better than I can draw it. For some reason, I feel like I actually used to draw maybe even better, like back in the day. And I feel like every time I sit down and draw, I feel like I'm gonna be doing something more cartoony right now, because cartoony is easier to fudge. If I try to do something more realistic with drawing, I tend to start getting a little bit annoyed. And what we talked about earlier, I'm like, okay, now I need to bring this digital so that I can make it the way I want to look, because ultimately that's what it's about, right? We all have our own quality bars, and the quality bar needs to be met. For me, I need to meet my own quality bar, and I don't feel that my drawing skills, which are still, I mean, I can make some really cool monster drawings, but if you want me to do like a guy, like a man,
right,
drawing, then I start falling into like, Rob Liefeld territory, where I'm like, I don't remember how to do this. And so I don't want that. So
Liefeld is like one of the five. Liefeld is probably one of the five comic book artist names I know, and not not in a good way.
so I give him a little bit of credit, and I'm not actually trying to shit on him, because the internet's done enough of that. He has gotten significantly worse in the past 25 years. I think it's objective. You can look at his stuff. You can look at stuff back in the day and look at it now, and I think it's worse. It is worse. Everyone's seen his Captain America with the big side boob, where he's like, it looks real bad. And I feel like, I don't know how that happens, other than he's got his own brand and he's got a look, and everyone knows him for a thing. And so he's like, I'm going to make Captain America have giant, tits. And that's
the only way that it's the only way that it's justifiable, is he's like, it's just my look.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fine. But here's where I give him some credit. It's like you were talking about Todd McFarlane. Todd McFarlane did it better than him, but both of those guys, and Jim Lee did it better than, in my opinion, both of them. But like those guys were all coming up at the same time, and they were doing the thing that I like, which is this anatomy is not correct. Well, we'll kick Jim Lee out of it because he's really, really good at anatomy. But both Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld, this is not how anatomy looks. They were style over substance. A lot of style, so much style. I mean, for 13-year-old me, big stupid muscles, big guns, like tiny heads, little feet, like tiny little crosshatch lines, like absolutely everywhere for no reason. That was, I don't know, that was just more exciting to me. It was a style. And so even though I would never put like Liefeld down as some kind of like influence or even someone I even really respect as an artist, I give him credit because when I was at that age, he was the fast food for me to make me interested in
that's fair.
What people were doing at the time when, like you said, 80s comic books, that kind of comic art didn't really interest me. I'm not saying there weren't amazing 80s comic book artists. I'm sure there were. People could start naming off names. I mean, yeah, I know who Neil Adams, gotcha, yeah, they're all good. But like in general, you think about it, they all kind of look the same. They all kind of look boring. They all kind of just there was no style to them. And the early Image guys, they brought that style to the table.
Yeah,
and I kind of feel like that's how I am too as an artist. Like I am a lot of style with what I do, and if I don't think something's working out, I'll just kind of paint over it so it looks cool. Like I'll hide something. I'll hide those feet in the grass. If you get my, I actually try not to hide feet or hands. I try to actually make sure that they're there. That was actually one of the things about that cholera cover that I made sure. Like I noticed that the original artist hid both hands and feet on it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give this band hands. they get hands because I feel like that's an upgrade. But anyway,
yeah. I mean, me and you had like a little chat about like working with labels and how hard it can be for record labels to how you can put a lot into making sure the hands and feet aren't hid in the grass, and then like you know, and then all along the process for like months, everybody's seeing the art as you go, and then like right at the end they're like, nah, this isn't what we wanted. And it's like, you had 3 months.
I've had that happen a couple times. Yeah.
It's like you've had 3 months to get us here.
I'm kind of bad now because that was me circa 2010. Me now is more like, hey, can we see what it's looking like? Nah, you can see when it's done. Like, well, we're a little nervous about that because what if we don't like it? Like, I gave you the sketch, dude. Use your imagination. The sketch is there. Like, the gist of what it's going to look like. Right, but we don't like. You look at my portfolio then. Like, do you like all that stuff? Like, yeah, we like all that stuff. Like, you're probably gonna like this stuff, And it's, I don't know, man. Like, I really don't like to invite. I mean, this is where I'm a little unprofessional about it, and I just don't care. But like, we're having a conversation. Plenty of artists and designers will not agree with this, but the artist, the client pays, give them what they pay for. I'm like, well, yeah, of course, but it's also my time. Like I've had experiences before where the guitarist writes you in the morning, the bassist writes you in the afternoon, the drummer writes you before bedtime, all with different shit. And I'm just sitting going like, no, dude, like I'm not going to have this peanut gallery of people like tear apart my shit at 2-week intervals. Right. No, we're not going to do that. I'm going to give you a sketch. You're going to buy off on the sketch, and then I'm going to show you the thing. And I will, if you don't like it, I'll make it right. I'm not going to say this is yours, deal with it. I mean, I'll make it right. I'm just saying most of the time that doesn't happen. And I've gotten a little comfortable with that now. And now I just don't like to deal with that constant noodling in the middle stages. It ruins the creativity.
I've gotten to the point now where like I'll do the very loose sketch phase, and then they'll be like, okay, we like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, I'm going to tighten it up. And then when it gets to the point where I actually have to start making it final art, I always tell them, this is this is it. Like
Yeah.
once we get past here, you're not changing anything until we get to the end. And if there's some small things, but we're agreeing right now that this is what you want. This is the character that you want. This is the thing. This is all this stuff is, it's locked in. I'm not going to be, and so, I think sometimes people like us have gotten to the point in our career where we can demand that type of respect for what we're doing.
A little bit, but, I definitely can. I'm not famous or nothing, but I feel like I can definitely. I mean, my work speaks for itself. And
listen, if people are coming to you to do the work and you're not going to them, they came to you for a reason. And they need to let you do what you do. I think what and this is a thing that I've talked about. Like you can kind of see up above, like I have those ice hockey goalie masks. That was like a core business of mine for like 5 years, custom painting the ice hockey goalie mask. And I had to get out of it. But but one of the things that I learned was, and it was from the perspective of another graphic design professional friend of mine, when we were discussing like how hard it is sometimes for me to work with the clients on the goalie mask, was that like they would nitpick the shit out of like the design. Cause I'd always do a Photoshop mock-up. Like this is basically what it's going to look like. And, but realize that this is a flat 2-dimensional picture and it's going to be wrapped over a 3-dimensional picture. So things are going to move. Some things are going to be bigger. And like, the perspective that my design friend came to me with was, he was like, well, this is probably the first time any of those people have actually hired and worked with an artist on something. And so they don't understand any of the protocol about how to do it. And I was like, and I never really thought about it that way. And, in the world of doing album art or designs for bands and things like that, you definitely have what you were talking about, where it's like everybody in the band wants their fucking say. And I have no tolerance for that at this point either. And it's like, but one of the things that I came to realize is that, there is a certain type of person who, if they are paying you to do something, they want to have their say because it's their money. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's been record labels that I've worked with where it's like, I'll work with them repeatedly. And every time it's like, why are you doing this to me? Why are you picking this fucking thing apart so desperately the entire time through, when you know that when it's done, it's going to look how you want it to look? And it's like, there's a frustration with, I think there's a couple things there. Like sometimes bands have never really had to work with an artist directly. Sure. And so they don't really know how to do it. Or it's just some person who's like, well, I'm paying you, so I'm going to get what I want. And
plus they think, $1,000 is a ton of money, which it really isn't in terms of art. But they feel like it is because they're a band that makes fucking nothing.
That's a whole other hour-long podcast.
Yeah, it is. It is. I know, but it's a big deal. I can't tell you how many metal band art forums or Facebook groups I follow, and be like, what do you charge for stuff? I'm like, oh, like $200, like $150. I'm just like, dude, like, come on. I mean, I know what kind of a industry we're working in here. The music industry is not exactly overflowing with cash, but you try to tell me there was a band, seriously, like wrote me once, and they're a major label band. The lead singer wrote me, and it was like, dude, we want this thing. Oh, we want it to look like Butcher at Birth, and all this stuff, just crazy stuff everywhere. I'm like, all right, cool. I could. I mean, it's merch. I'm not gonna charge you like $800 for merch, but I mean, I could probably do it for like $350. He's like, whoa. We were kind of in the more like the 125 ballpark. I'm like, you're wasting my time, dude. Like, I'm sorry, dude, but like that's like sub McDonald's level wages there for how long this takes to make. And I'm sorry, but like my time is more valuable than that. And we left with that, like, totally like, all right, cool, maybe another time. But in my heart, I'm still going like, you're trying to tell me that like the 5-6 members of a band, depending on how many members they have, can't cough up $50?
$100 each is nothing.
I mean,
how much you pay for your guitars, your pedals, your strings, your practice space, blah 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 blah.
I think about the mixing, the engineering, the studio time. Do you think they balk at those guys? They're not balking at those guys. No, they pick the artist to balk at. And so I don't have a lot of patience for that kind of stuff. And so if someone is like, "Oh, you're too expensive," I'm like, "Okay, cool, good luck." I'm not the guy that's going to be like, "Oh, I don't want to lose this client." Like, no.
Well, the thing that's crazy to me when it comes to merch, and because I'm the exact opposite of what you are, is that is how bands make money now. And merch design should cost more now than they ever have, because that's the entire sole income of most bands when they're touring and when they're home. And it's like, you know, when I started designing stuff, when I switched from doing like rock posters into doing merchandise, you know, like $1,000 was like standard for you know, for like a band that would have a merch deal. Then because of all of those people who will do it for $100 or $250, drove the prices into the shitter. And so now you can have a band like, you know, Foo Fighters. They're not going to pay more than $250 for a shirt because they know they don't have to.
The standard. What is that? Like album covers, you can charge like kind of whatever you want within your rates. But if you're doing merch, it's like $250. Like, you know, or like, you know, what the hell?
It's so funny. I have this like this frame of reference where I was working for a merch company that they don't even exist anymore. But I was doing shirts for a Steve Miller Band, and
that's cool.
Love it. It's one of my dad's favorite bands, and so every now and then I'll take a job like that, and I'll just be like, "Hey, pops, I did shirts for Steve Miller." You know what I mean? And it's like. And it's fun work. I like working on stuff that's kind of outside of my normal, you know, I like to test my boundaries and stuff. But long story short, I did some shirts and they got approved and they went out on tour with the band. And when it was tour season the next year, when they came back and were like, "Oh, they really liked your designs. They want to have you do some more stuff." Somebody accidentally put an image in the assets folder that showed how many units they'd sold of every shirt design on the last tour. So I could see how many shirts they'd sold of my designs.
Oh, no shit.
And it was like, it made me so mad to know how much because you know, at a concert like that, the shirt's $50. Oh yeah. And it's like, they're selling 20,000 of my designs for $50 a piece. And they're not like they're high quality shirts and prints. They're like, they're paying like $3 a shirt. And I was like, God damn it. That made me so fucking mad.
It's the fact that if you were to give a higher price, they would just find someone to go it cheaper.
Yeah. They find some kid who lives in their mom's fucking, you know, spare bedroom.
It doesn't make you feel very good sometimes when it happens.
Yeah, so that's another reason why I keep so many balls in the air. It's like, if I want to keep doing merch stuff, I know I can't make a whole living on that, so I've got to do some goalie masks. And I've got the goalie mask business was kind of similar, where it was like, I live in California. It's super expensive here, and I'm competing with people who are just as good as me in, you know, small town in Pennsylvania, small town in Canada, whose overhead is like a fraction of what I am, and they're just as good as me.
Indonesia.
Yeah, that's what destroyed the death metal pricing.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, I did a shirt for a really popular band. I love the singer to death. He's a super nice guy, but he straight up told me, he's like, "Yeah, you were way too expensive for us, man." Like
I know exactly who you're talking about. Exactly, because I had the same conversation, and I know exactly where he gets his shirts done now. Yeah, and I love him. He's a personal friend of mine, and I love him, and I don't feel bad about it because he's running a business, and
I know, man.
Business 101 is buy low, sell high.
There's no hard feelings. There's no hard feelings. But when he told me, like, dude, like, I can go to, you know, Indonesia and I can get some kid, do it for $50, and it looks amazing. It's like kind of hard not to do that. And I'm like, I get it, dude. I get it. It hurts to hear you say it, but I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
As absolutely, because I was looking through your portfolio and I saw a shirt from that band, and I was like,
Yeah, so you know it.
I know. I was like, I know what conversation that Dusty's had with
Oh,
them.
and you know what? Probably, unfortunately, I did overcharge for that shirt at the time. I didn't know about what merch prices were going for.
Sure.
And my album cover prices are like around 1,000, and I will, now I alter it to the curve basically
Sure.
for what back then I didn't know. I was like, well, I mean, it's a shirt, so I don't know. I mean, it's still just as much work as making an album cover, except for I'm using a little bit more of the black negative space in there. $500. I mean, he agreed, but like, yeah, I never worked for him again either. So it was like,
yeah, like
sorry, man.
I remember that I did a couple designs for them, and then my band played with them, and being at the show, and is like those designs being sold out on their merch board, and just being like, come on, man.
Yeah, I know.
But I mean, I get it. And again, like, I absolutely love the guy to death. I mean, he's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And so I'm not mad. I'm not mad about it at all. It's just, it's the fucking harsh reality of designing merch, man. There are people in places who can do the same thing for cheaper. And if you're a band, why wouldn't you do that? You know what I mean? Like, you want to have integrity, and you want to pay artists what they're worth to get the art that you want. But at the same time, like, you're fucking running a business, especially in like a death metal band where there's not a lot. There's like 0.1% of death metal bands are full-time professional death metal musicians. And like, I think if a lot of people knew how many of the very top level death metal bands all have like day jobs, because that isn't not a genre of music that you can really survive on, they'd be fucking surprised. I mean, it's like Cannibal Corpse and like 4 bands that can like that can be full-time death metal bands, and that's like it.
Yeah, dude, absolutely, man. Like, everyone I know, when they're on tour, they're working somewhere, like,
absolutely,
just working jobs.
Absolutely. I actually just did a shirt. I just finished a shirt for Cannibal Corpse.
That's so cool, dude. I was heard. I guess it's not for merch, but I always heard they had a really tight deal with Vincent Locke, obviously for album covers, but I thought it was for shirts too. And I was heard that don't even try to do stuff for Cannibal Corpse because you won't get through. I'm like, okay, so I never tried, but now I'm like, oh, kind of would love to do that.
Well, I'm in the artist pool for their merch company. And so
that's cool. Yeah.
They had they'd asked for, and I had submitted designs for Cannibal Corpse before, and nothing ever got through. And this was like a specific Psycho Las Vegas design, where it was cool. The art directors there came up with this idea. They pitched it to Cannibal Corpse guys, and they're like, well, let's see a sketch. And so, I just went into sketch mode, and like, apparently they all loved it, and it's getting approved. And then I guess
that's great, man.
It's gonna be some more of that for them in a similar vein, because this isn't coming out until after Psycho Las Vegas. I don't have to worry about talking about it before it's too soon. But it's like, that's one of the things I really always liked about working for the merch companies is like, I know what I can get paid. It used to be more. It's still worth my while. I'm almost never on this Cannibal Corpse thing. It was such an extreme amount of work that I asked for more, and they gave it to me, because they were like, yeah, dude, like, you did basically 2 complete shirt designs front and back, and they were like massive amounts of work. So they paid me more because I asked for it. But,
that's awesome. I agree. But it's like, whenever you do work for the merch companies, that's always like the professionals, right? In general, they know what they're doing. They're running a business. It's when the bands write you specifically. This some band in Brazil, they want to merge. Those tend to be the ones where it's a little more like, oh, this is going to be a headache, isn't it? So I've only worked with a merch company like once for Lamb of God, and I was like chasing that high. I'm like, this is how it should be. This is so professional. And then that lady left the company.
How long ago was that?
Maybe 4 years ago.
Was it Live Nation or was it Bravado? What was the company? Because for a long time they were at Bravado, and then I did work for
Sony or something. Oh, like Sony. I can tell you in a second here. But yeah, I loved working with the representative that wrote me. She was just super professional and super nice, and it was just like, oh man, like this is like awesome. And then after she left the company, I tried to write them again, and they're like, oh yeah, sure, like we can consider you for future things. Never wrote me again. So I was just like, okay. Right. So
you gotta have
SonyMusic.com. Thread Shop is what it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never worked with them. But it's like you have to have an in with an art director at one of the merch companies, or you're never. And once your person leaves, you're fucked. Because nobody.
That's exactly what happened. It was one project that did 2 Lamb of God shirts, and I was fucked.
None of the other artists who are in the artist pool for that company are going to give you their person either. Oh, no, it's not like you can ask a friend and be like, "Hey, who you working with over there now?" And they're going to be like, "Man, I'm not telling you."
No, I actually was super bold about that. There's a guy on he might be on Dark Art Society, he might not. I can't remember where I saw him, but I saw that he was doing stuff for Slayer, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna write him like, hey man, I saw. Well, he also did stuff for Lamb of God, and so I explained I even explained my story. I was like, my representative left. Like, look, like here's my hoping to break that ice a bit and be like, look, I'm not like a scab trying to like take your work, right? Like no, I've worked with this band before. I just don't have a contact anymore. And he was like, obviously, I'm not going to give you that, dude. I'm like.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair
like
enough.
I have people who are like dear friends, who are like, nah, I can't do it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's fair enough.
It is what it is. I don't really worry about it.
Yeah, in the last decade that I've been full-time freelance, I have never had a time where I was like, I don't have any projects to do.
Yeah.
There's enough work. If you know how, if you're like, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about when I was in the games industry, and it was like, I made myself a person over time who was easy to work with. Mm-hmm. I didn't start out that way. I was a fucking pain in the ass like everybody else.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, me too.
And then at some point I realized, like, if you want to not get laid off constantly, you need to put yourself in a position where you can be the last guy there. And so I just became like, if I'm not the owner, I'm not the boss. My only job is to do what I'm told to do without complaining. And so I just became that guy. And then when I started doing like full-time freelance, I carried that over. I was like, just be the guy who's easy to deal with, and it's, I'm like, I never hurt for work ever, I hurt to get paid what I'm worth, but that is not specific to me.
That's a different thing.
That's not specific to me. Dude, this has been a super enlightening and entertaining conversation. I'm like super stoked that you came on, man.
Hell yeah. It was really fun.
Yeah. I'm going to let you go. It's late. It's late for both of us. I think this is the latest podcast interview I've ever done, actually. Because I lucked out during the pandemic. Everybody was home. I could do them at noon and 4.
Oh, yeah.
Now everybody's back at work.
Well, it's because I got to put my kid to bed around 8:30 and stuff, and so everything up to that point is pretty much dad mode.
Yeah, and I remember.
After that, I go, yeah, okay, now I have a night. So
yeah, I remember. Well, I will let you go, so you can either go to bed or you can try to get a little work done before you go to bed.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks, Dusty. I will be in contact with you about when your episode's going to be out and stuff, and I appreciate your time as always, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me.
Yeah, for sure, man. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.